people, well, really, I mean, my people, we don't ask for money. So I remember the first time Patreon came to my attention, and I was like, yo, this is a cool concept, people supporting your ideas. But that embedded kind of like upbringing was like, I can't ask people for money. And I remember going to speak to a very respected music manager that I knew at the time. And he was like to me, I can't ask or do a Kickstarter for my band because it's like we're begging for money. And I always held that perception. I didn't want that perception of me in the community to be like, I need money. So you know what I didn't do? I learned not to ask. We never ask. Because we're kind of trained to like look perfect, don't take risks, sell the perception that you're doing better than you are, or sell the perception in general. Obviously, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it, but I'll tell you this, perception and fear of how people will perceive you has killed so many people's dreams. Fast forward 12 years, I'm a different kind of person. I'm a different kind of creator. I understand the value that I bring to people. You know, I've worked with startups, worked with investors, I've invested in companies, venture capital, all that space. And I realized that everybody's asking for someone else for money. Everyone else is asking. Everyone is asking for the opportunity. I put this on my Instagram and I was like, the caption I put was, don't wait for opportunity, ask for it. And I decided this year I'm going to internalize that more in my pursuit to take on the publishing world and traditional publishing with the books that I'm creating and the ideas that I'm sharing. I was like, I want to do it differently. One of the things I did was reject a number of traditional publishing deals. If you want to hear more about that story, you can check out my last video, check out my newsletter, or you can just, I don't know how YouTube even works. I'll put a link in the description. That's exactly what I'll do. So for the first time in my career, I decided I was going to publicly ask for money. I was about £1,500 short on breaking even on production costs. And I was like, yo, instead of footing this myself and then selling the book to make money, why don't I do advanced pre-orders? This is a module that I've seen work with a lot of authors in the fantasy space. And I was like, I want to start trying to build this into my ecosystem. That involves me asking people for money. Look, we've all heard it, yeah? If you don't ask, you don't receive. And I can count on one hand the amount of time I've asked people for money. Most of the time people have assisted me or helped me out of their own goodwill or because they saw my situation and they wanted to enable it somehow. But for me to go to someone and say, yo, I need this right now, particularly money, that's not saying no one's ever given me money. I'm just saying the level it's taking me to get to. I think as a student, most of us have been broke students. But, you know, if I ever needed money back then, it would always be my sister, you know, or someone close to me, just like lending me. It was always my sister, to be honest. I'll just be honest. My sister would lend me £20, £10. And I remember being so broke in uni. I remember being so broke. And I was on a train with my friend, and she could probably just smell the brokenness on me. And she was like, yo, like, Solomon, are you broke? And I can't remember what I said. I think I said, nah, like, I'm good. And she was like, yo, if you need money, I'll lend you money. And I was so much like, no, I don't want to, blah, blah, blah. And in the end, she gave me, it was such a big deal. She lent me £60 and it was such a big deal that I still remember it to this day. Because I'm still embarrassed about it. But I remember even telling my mum that she lent me money, and my mum was like, oh, thank her for me, and etc. And this was like at 21, 20 years old. Like, you just don't ask for money. I think it's part of the way we've been conditioned when we were growing up. You know, I remember you'd go to somebody's house as a child, you know, and even if you were starving and people offered you food, you have to say no, depending on how close they were. You'd have to say no. Even as the sweet aromas of meat filled the air, you'd have to just hold that down because it was kind of seen as like a sign of disrespect to your family or your parents if you went outside begging. And I get it. I tried to be more liberal with that. And I remember my son, we went to a karate competition and one of the mums offered him a sweet. And I was like, no, I'm a new parent. Bro, take that. You can take that. And this boy not embarrass me. But then when he finished his sweet, asked him for another one. And the mother was like, oh, sure, you can have one. There's only a few left, though, to emphasize that you're not supposed to ask for another one. I wanted the ground to swallow me. I was like, yeah, this is why our parents did that. But on that basis, we were kind of raised with this. I've got this. Me, myself, and I. £1,500. And I'll be honest with you, I started with a small amount. And my voice is cracking there. I'll be honest with you, I started with a small amount because I generally have too much pride to even ask for an amount that I thought would be like, oh, what, can't he afford it or something? And I put it out there. It was a small campaign with like incentives for how you could pre-order the book, but other incentives for other things that I could offer my community. I'm not gonna lie to you, it was very nerve-wracking. This is a real text my mum sent me. Big up, mum, I love you. You know, my boys were mocking me, teasing me, you know, because that's the game. We always make bants out of each other. I love them for that. But gradually, payments started coming in. You know, someone paid £17.99, ordered the book. Somebody paid £25, and then bigger payments, contributions started coming in. And what's interesting is the ARCs didn't just enable people to support me for the book, they enabled people to support my ideas or my vision. People I've interacted with in many different ways, and they were just like, because of you, I've been able to achieve this, so I want to support what you were doing. And that's the power of ARCsing, because once you ARCs, you open up the avenue for other people to bring opportunities towards you. The real tipping point came when an organization that's been wanting to work with me for a while now, hit me up and they were like, yo, I've seen your post. We are willing to support and contribute £5,000 towards this raise or the pre-order campaign if you can work out some kind of proposal for what you can do with us. So listen to this. I started out asking for 1,500. Cumulatively, when it came to the end, I totaled about £8,000 in a space of like 3 to 4 days. About $10,000 if you adjust for the currency rate, etc. And it made me realize that there's a lot of things that are out there for me. And if I just have the strength and ignore everyone else, and I have the courage to ask for them, who knows what doors can be opened. It's kind of like when people pray and they ask God for things, you know, they ask all the time. And sometimes he puts those things out there for us. Now we have to go out into the world and take ownership over them through our voice, through our actions, through our commitment towards those causes. So I raised over 400% of my initial target, and I suppose that's the power of putting yourself out there. And it's interesting because I've even supported campaigns when I've seen people put them out there. So why did I think no one would do that for me? You know? So creators, arcs,